time solo traveling thoughts. This was the first time I'd ever gone on a trip on my own without my parents, without some friends, not with my school. But basically, the idea of this trip was I wanted to prove to myself that I could do this kind of stuff on my own. Just because I'm at that point in my life where it's like, no, you adulting. And to me, I wanted to be able to say, I can go to Disney. I don't have to wait for anyone to go with me. Because I don't have very many people in my life who would just be like, oh yeah, you're going to Disney? Okay, I'll come with you. And I didn't want to have to wait for anyone. That's that. That is the reasoning behind why I did this. So everyone obviously has their own reasons for going solo. Maybe yours are similar to mine, and it's just like no one really wants to go with you, but you really want to go, or you have family that's not able to like you usually go with your parents and they're not able to travel or something, or your significant other can't get off work but you still really want to go. Don't let it stop you. That's gonna be the overall theme of the next couple videos, because they're all gonna be kind of this wrap-up stuff, like thoughts on vlogging, thoughts on solo traveling, thoughts on solo dining, thoughts on, like all that kind of stuff is gonna be the next few videos. So hopefully that gives you guys some direction. And for me, I'm hoping it'll be fun to look back on after I have a few more solo trips under my belt and say, like, this was what it was like the first time and this is what it's like now. And hopefully if anyone else who's planning a solo trip stumbles upon these videos, they'll learn something from it, because I know when I was looking, it was really hard to find solo trip videos of people who are my age. So I thought that this might be helpful to anyone who just randomly stumbles upon this channel. So basically, again, first time thoughts of a solo traveler. I was relatively comfortable with the idea of it. It was something I'd been thinking about for a long time, because I really wanted to, the first big thing I wanted to buy after I started like working my big girl job was Disney. That was what I wanted to do. And so I worked and saved up money until I could afford to go on a trip, and I did it. And I was like, I'm going with or without anyone, because this is what I want to do with, like, this was my goal. And that trip, my parents did decide to come on with me. Then the next year, I had some things that happened in my life that were less than pleasant, without giving into too much detail. And I decided that I needed an escape trip to Disney, and I did the math, figured out, yep, I can do this again, I can afford to do it again, but I wasn't going to be able to travel with my family, so they weren't going to be able to come with me. So I had to make a decision, and I said, you know what, I've always wanted to do a solo trip. I read people's solo trip trip reports on Disboards, stuff like that. I wasn't really following anyone on YouTube at that point. No, that's not true. I had started following people on YouTube, but I wasn't following anyone who was solo. I was following a lot of like 20-something, 30-something couples, but not really any solo travelers yet. So I kind of went on this mission to find some solo travelers, and I found a few good ones, and I often will point them out on my Instagram, so there should be a link to the Instagram down below, and I encourage you to go check that out, because I do try to shout out other solo travelers and other Disney peeps that I really like. So yes, that's that. So I was, like I said, relatively comfortable with the idea of going on my own. I am a little more on the introverted side of things, so I don't necessarily mind being alone. That's, one thing that you really have to think about if you're thinking about going solo like this, is, are you okay with being alone? Which can also set how long your trip is. Like, maybe if you're not as okay with it, you only go for like 3 days. For me, I don't mind it for long periods of time, so I don't mind still going for the 10-day trips. And my other thing too is, like, social media and texting people is more than enough for me, like social interaction for me. so I don't really, my battery is dying. So you may get a weird cut in here. But basically, I decided that this worked for me. Going solo would be a good choice. So I went for it, and that was really like how the trip started, and it ended up being really great. I gained a lot of confidence from it. Honestly, the scariest part for me was the airport, because I'm like terrified of airports for whatever reason. And I shouldn't say terrified, but they freak me out. But I did really well on the flight. I did, I was quite proud of myself for handling it as well as I did. Even I had a lot of travel difficulties coming home, and I did really well there. But that was honestly the scariest thing for me. Like, I researched Disney and watched so many videos and all that kind of stuff so much that I felt like Disney was actually the perfect place for me to do my first solo trip to, because I knew it so well. So I didn't have to worry about getting lost. Disney handles all the transportation, so I didn't have to worry about driving anywhere. It was just kind of the perfect thing to do. So if you are looking to like branch out and travel on your own, definitely think about going to Disney if you know it well. Otherwise, I'd pick somewhere else you know really well. Let's see here. The other thing that I was expecting on my trip, that was hoping wouldn't happen, but it did, but not often, only like once or twice. There were a few moments where, like, I did feel a little uncomfortable being alone, I guess. Not necessarily being alone as much as, like, interactions got kind of weird, which I've had happen before. I have gone solo to the parks a few times. Like, I've traveled with my parents, but then they've said, like, stayed in the hotel room or gone somewhere else, and I've run off to do something else or whatever. And this has happened before, so I guess I was a little more prepared for it. But sometimes cast members do get a little awkward when you're on your own. For the most part, they're really good and understanding about it, and just like get it. I don't know how else to explain it, but sometimes I did have a few that seemed a little flustered by the fact that I was on my own, which you'd think they'd be used to, because I feel like the college program kids would go on their own fairly often. I don't know. I should ask my friend who did DCP, but I feel like they would go. I mean, I'm sure they go with their friends, but I'm sure their off days don't always line up, so why not just go by yourself? I don't know. But, so just, that was a little something, but again, and it wasn't like awkward, like scary, awkward, uncomfortable. It was just kind of like, oh yeah, you're just making a big deal out of the fact that I'm alone, and it's really okay. You don't, like, I just wanted to tell them, I'm like, it's really okay. Like, I'm not mad or upset or whatever. I'm cool. Like, I know what I'm doing. So, and one of them was my fault. One of them I kind of set myself up for failure, because I booked a reservation for 2 people and it was just me, and forgot to change it. Oops. So that was my fault. That one was totally on me. The other one was just, I totally understood how it happened too, but just, I mean, and honestly, those 3 little moments out of the whole trip, and 2 of them are related, 2 of them were at the same restaurant, and it's really not, it wasn't really bad, and I was okay with that. Nobody really pointed it out or made me feel weird about it or whatever. So again, I felt comfortable 99.9% of the time. Other than those, like, 2 moments, I was totally just like, yeah, this is great. I just ran around and did what I wanted to do, and it was really nice not having to worry about anyone else. I didn't have to think about, like, oh, I just, spent 2 hours on my own, and this is a family trip, so I should probably go back and hang out with my fam for a while, or, oh, I hope they're okay wherever they are, or, whatever they're getting up to, or it was like all about me, which sounds really selfish and horrible, but sometimes you just have to do that for yourself, okay? I know I do. So yeah, so 99% of the time I was fine. Like, I just walked around the park. I enjoyed a cake pop on Main Street one day just because I felt like it. And it was, I canceled more fast passes this trip than I think I've ever canceled in my life, because I would look at it and I would be like, no, don't want to do that. And it wasn't like, oh, I'm supposed to do this because I'm supposed to meet my parents back at this ride because we have this fast pass scheduled at 2, and that was going to be our meetup point. No, I don't want to ride Buzz Lightyear right now. Cancel, move on, do something else. Like, so I loved the flexibility of it. I feel like I've been spoiled now and I'm not going to be able to, like, do a trip with people anymore. That's not true. I can still do a trip with people, but it's gonna be a lot harder, I think. The other thing I always hear people talk about, and I was a little worried about this, but I wasn't really, because I would do this all the time when I was in college. But like, people tend to get really weird about dining solo, which again was like where one of my big, like, awkward moments was. I keep playing with things. I should not have things in front of me. And basically, like, for me, I knew it wouldn't be a big deal because, like I said, I've done it before and it's never bothered me at all. But, you know, as far as dining goes, it wasn't half bad. Like, it was fine. I did a lot of table service meals this time because I did the deluxe dining plan. So, it was a lot of table service meals. But, basically, yeah, it was fine. No one was weird or awkward. You know, as far as me being there alone. The character meals and other characters were real awkward as far as me being alone. They were just like, yeah, sure, you. Except when I tripped up in front of Belle. That was embarrassing. But that was just me being awkward. I got a little starstruck with Belle when I met her. But yeah, so basically, Belle thing was just me. But no one was real awkward about it. I mean, a few people would be like a few cast members and stuff would be like, oh, are you by yourself? But it was never uncomfortable or weird. And, you know, because it was just like, oh yeah, I'm just traveling by myself. And then they'd usually just strike up another conversation or something, and it was like, it didn't even matter. So, yeah. That's all I have as far as stuff written down about my specific thoughts on traveling solo. Everything else was just like a normal Disney trip. I know I didn't do any of the big rides, so I didn't take advantage of any single rider lines or anything like that. I think the biggest thing was I got on Frozen Ever After really fast because I got to skip like 5 people because they had giant groups and they needed like one person to fill in or they needed a family of 3 or less, I think, to like fill in a boat. And I was one person, so they were like, get up here. So that was kind of nice. So you do sometimes get a little benefit from that because they'll use it to fill in a ride vehicle even if there's not a single rider line. But I mean, that's it. That was the only differences really between traveling solo and going on my own or going with people, because it's really not that different. Disney is still Disney. You're just doing it by yourself. That's the only difference. And, you know, a lot of it comes down to comfort, what you're comfortable with and all that kind of stuff. My next video, I think, will be, let me grab my calendar. I believe my next video is tips on solo traveling. So that's why this one is kind of short, because it's just my quick thoughts. But like I said, I don't have many specific thoughts as far as like solo traveling. You know, I was, like I said, mostly worried about the flight down, and that was fine. The flight back was fine. You know, even with my travel issues that I had on my flight back, basically being solo almost made it easier because I was a little nervous that I wasn't even going to get back. That, like, the day I was supposed to, I would come back eventually. But I was nervous I wasn't going to get back the day I was supposed to. And so I just, like, it was a lot easier to deal with it almost, because it wasn't like, oh my gosh, I have to potentially find a hotel room and all this stuff for like 3 people or whatever. Nope, it was just me. I was like, oh, I can just do whatever I want. You know, if I get stuck here for another day or whatever. So it really wasn't that bad. I really actually think it is easier traveling on your own than with people. Just because you're only responsible for yourself, then you don't have to worry about, you know, home aloneing somebody and like leaving them behind somewhere. So it is kind of nice, but again, you have to make sure that it's right for you. So the next video I have here is thoughts of a first-time vlogger. So I think we have a while before my tips and tricks for solo trips come out. So let me know in the comments below if I have a comment box, because I don't know if I will. But if I have a comment box, let me know in the comments below if you like what questions you have about planning a solo trip specifically. This one's going to be specifically about solo trips. I have people who are looking at going to Disney in the future, so I do want to do a few planning videos for them about how to plan your trip. But mostly right now we're talking about solo trips because we're following off of my first solo trip. So if you have suggestions for that, leave them in the comments, send me a message, pop over to Instagram and let me know. I'm going to try to remember to put up one of those little question boxy things on my Instagram story so that you guys can write in and say, you know, if you have questions or whatever. And I'm going to try to do it a couple times. So, yeah, that's that. So next week, well, not next week, in a couple weeks, I'm going to try to go back to every other week, I think, for a while. And then I'm going to take a little, like I said, I'm going to take a little break in the spring to work on some other stuff for this channel and my other channel too. So, unless I come up with something else, I don't know yet. But yeah, so basically that's the plan. So we're going to try to keep this going for a little bit here until we find another trip to go on. So thank you so much for watching, and don't forget to like, subscribe, and comment down below, and follow, you know, check out my Instagram, all that kind of boring stuff that nobody really likes to hear their favorite YouTuber say. So I will leave this here, and have a Disney day, and see you next time.